Boarding school era of the United States stripped Native American children from their families and cultures for decades.
In the late 19th century, 2 off-reservation boarding schools were established for Native American children here in Indiana. Now, 13 News' Madison Stacy has learned state officials are looking into deaths that happened at those sites.
This aging cemetery in Wabash, Indiana, is the final resting place of at least 8 Native American children. It's one of several sites across the country now working to reckon with its role in a brutal system.
It's not shocking that two schools in Indiana had grave sites. My estimation is that virtually almost every single school contracted by the federal government has a gravesite.
For decades, the United States government worked in tandem with religious organizations to send thousands of Native American children to off-reservation boarding schools. Many hundreds of miles away from their families, the system used children as pawns in the federal government's overall strategy to destroy indigenous communities through the policy of assimilation. Cemeteries existed at nearly all of these locations. St. Joseph's Indian Normal School was a Catholic all-boys school run and operated out of Rensselaer from 1888 to 1896. White's Indiana Manual Labor Institute was run by Quaker missionaries in Wabash from 1882 to 1895. They were part of a system the United States government is still working to reconcile with. Last summer, unmarked graves of 752 First Nations children prompted U.S. Department of the Interior Treasury Secretary Deb Haaland to launch an investigation into how many children may be buried at institutions across the United States. But St. Joseph's and White's were left out of that federal investigation. Now, the Indiana Department of Natural Resources has assembled a team of researchers to look into the issue further.
And so our interest is the cemeteries that are associated with both schools and whether we have the exact size, shape, and location of those cemeteries.
Although there are graves of children still standing on the grounds of White's today, that may not be indicative of how many children died at the school. School records obtained by 13 News show there could be as many as 13 graves on site.
And I know that just because there are 5 tombstones does not mean there's necessarily 5 bodies. Find how many in size and shape, identify as many as we can with a name so that we actually give these children their part of their humanity back, their final resting place.
DNR is cooperating with staff members at White's Residential and Family Services in Wabash and the Jasper County Historical Society in Rensselaer. State officials say there were at least 2 recorded deaths at St. Joseph's, but officials have yet to find any graves. They plan to work with a team over the summer to get more clear answers.
And then between their computers and stuff, they'll come up with a potential map, and that'll really go to a size and shape of the cemetery. Won't tell me who's buried in the cemetery, but it'll tell me whether there's 5 graves or 10 graves or 50 graves. And that makes a difference in how we move forward.
And 13 News will be following up with Indiana DNR and bring you updates on this investigation into the boarding school cemeteries. The U.S. Department of the Interior does plan to release its investigation findings this month. Now, you can find our full story and its mini documentary about St. Joseph's Indian Normal School and White's Indiana Manual Labor School on WTHR.com right now.